She never made it to the stage. What the cowboy found in the wreck broke him. Leela Harper was the kind of girl who seemed to carry the sunrise in her smile. In the quiet town of Willow Creek, Texas, everyone knew her name. She had grown up on the dusty streets, her small house sitting on the edge of town where the fields stretched endlessly under the wide, open sky. From the moment she could talk, she had sung. Her mother would say Leela had a voice that could calm the fiercest storms, and even as a child, she carried herself with a confidence that made strangers stop and listen. She didn't just sing, she told stories with her voice, stories that made people feel as if she were speaking directly to their hearts. Every morning, she woke up before the sun. Her small room was cluttered with music sheets, a battered guitar, and a mirror decorated with stickers of stars and musical notes. She would sit by the window, letting the soft light touch her face as she practiced scales and melodies, humming tunes she had made up herself. Leela dreamed big, but in a town like Willow Creek, dreams had a way of staying small, trapped by reality. Yet she refused to let that happen to her. Every note she sang carried determination, a kind of quiet insistence that one day she would leave the little town behind and step onto a stage that was hers alone. School was never easy for Leela. She was bright and talented, but some of the other kids didn't understand her. They whispered behind her back or called her too dramatic when she would perform during school assemblies. But Leela didn't mind. She had learned early that people who are meant to shine often stand out in ways others cannot understand. What mattered to her wasn't what people thought, it was the music. She spent hours practicing, rewriting songs, and imagining herself performing in front of hundreds of people, the lights shining down on her, the crowd cheering. That was her world and nothing else mattered. Wyatt McCall had known Leela almost her entire life. He was a cowboy through and through, with a quiet strength that matched the land he worked on. Wyatt was in his early 30s, tall, with broad shoulders and hands that bore the marks of hard work. Most of the time, he spent his days riding horses, tending to cattle, or fixing fences that the wind and weather had torn apart. He wasn't one for many words, preferring the calm of the fields and the simplicity of routine. Yet somehow, over the years, he had become Leela's quiet guardian, the one person who admired her from a distance, respecting her independence but always wishing he could protect her from the world's dangers. He often watched her perform at local events, like the little Friday night shows at the town's community center or the occasional open mic at the cafe downtown. His presence wasn't obvious, he didn't want her to feel watched. He just wanted to be nearby, knowing she was safe while she chased her dreams. Leela never noticed him much, too focused on the music, but Wyatt didn't mind. Sometimes, being a silent supporter was more important than being seen. He remembered the first time he realized she had real talent. It was a hot summer evening when the town held its annual fair. Leela was only 14, standing on the small wooden stage, a microphone clutched in her tiny hands. Her voice rose over the crowd, pure and strong, and everyone stopped to listen. Even the adults, who usually spent their evenings gossiping or watching the horses in the ring, were captivated. Wyatt felt a lump in his throat as he realized that no matter where life took her, she was destined for something far bigger than Willow Creek. Despite her talent, Leela remained humble. She helped her neighbors carry groceries, mended fences with her father, and took care of her younger brother when her mother was busy. She was kind, generous, and endlessly patient with the people around her. It was hard to imagine that such a bright star could ever feel small or overlooked, but she had her moments of doubt. Some nights she would sit by the window, guitar in her lap, staring at the endless sky, wondering if her dreams were too big for a girl from a town like Willow Creek. In those moments, Wyatt's quiet admiration felt almost protective. He knew the world could be cruel, but he also knew Leela had something rare, a spark that no amount of doubt or criticism could extinguish. Her family supported her as best they could. Her father, a former rodeo rider, didn't fully understand the music world, but he admired her dedication. He had seen too many dreams die young, and he feared Leela's might too. Still, he encouraged her, reminding her that talent alone wasn't enough. She would need courage, persistence, and a little bit of luck to make it out of Willow Creek alive with her dreams intact. Her mother, more practical than her father, often reminded Leela to be careful, especially when traveling or performing in unfamiliar places. But she also knew her daughter's heart would not be swayed by caution alone. Leela was determined. Nothing would stop her. At school, she was known for her performances more than her grades. Teachers marveled at her dedication, while classmates were captivated by the energy she brought to every song. She often wrote her own lyrics, inspired by life in the town, her experiences with love, friendship, and heartbreak, and her dreams of something greater. People said that when Leela sang, it was as if she was speaking for everyone who had ever felt stuck, small, or unseen. It was that honesty, that raw emotion, that made her stand out, and it made Wyatt proud to see her grow into the woman she was becoming. Wyatt noticed the little things too, the way Leela's eyes sparkled when she was on stage, how she bit her lip when she was nervous, how she would tap her foot in rhythm when no one was watching. He saw her laugh with genuine joy, and he noticed the fleeting moments when her confidence faltered, when she questioned whether her dreams were possible. He wanted to step in, to protect her from the harsh truths of the world, but he also knew he couldn't. Part of life, he realized, was letting people risk failure, even when it hurt to watch. Leela had to face her own battles, and he could only stand by quietly, hoping she would emerge stronger each time. Her room was filled with remnants of her journey. Posters of famous singers covered the walls, some torn and curling at the edges. Sheet music was scattered across the floor, sometimes overlapping her notebooks filled with lyrics and doodles. Her guitar, though scratched and worn, was her constant companion. She would sit for hours strumming chords, testing melodies, sometimes singing softly to herself late into the night. Music was her language, her way of understanding the world, and she poured every ounce of her heart into it. Every note, every lyric carried a piece of her soul. Wyatt often watched from a distance, a subtle smile on his face, wishing he could capture the energy and passion she exuded. He understood that Leela's path wouldn't be easy. Success rarely comes without struggle, and he knew that the bigger the dream, the greater the risk of disappointment. Yet he also knew something else, that Leela had a rare courage, a stubbornness that refused to let fear dictate her choices. That courage, more than anything, made her unstoppable in his eyes. The town of Willow Creek, small and quiet as it was, had begun to buzz with talk of Leela's talent. People speculated about her future, wondering if she would ever leave the dusty streets and small stages for something bigger. Leela, however, remained focused on the present, practicing diligently, performing whenever she could, and dreaming tirelessly. She carried her ambitions quietly but with unwavering intensity. Her passion was infectious, inspiring those around her to believe in something beyond the confines of their small town. Wyatt's role in her life was subtle but meaningful. He didn't interfere, didn't offer advice unless asked, but he always provided quiet support. He would sometimes deliver a bottle of water during practice, help fix a broken microphone stand, or simply sit in the back of the room during a performance, offering a reassuring presence. To most, he was just another townsperson, but to Leela, he was an unspoken pillar of support, a silent witness to her journey. Leela Harper's story in Willow Creek was only beginning, yet it was already filled with small victories, quiet moments of joy, and the persistent hum of ambition. She was a girl who refused to be confined by circumstance, a young woman whose heart was set on reaching beyond the horizon. And somewhere in the background, Wyatt McCall watched, understanding that life would test her in ways neither of them could predict, yet hoping, always hoping, that her dreams would not be lost to the harshness of the world. Leela Harper had been waiting for this moment for years, though she hardly believed it could really happen. The letter had arrived a week ago, crisp and official, its envelope bearing the logo of a well-known music studio in Austin. She had read the words over and over, her heart pounding with excitement. She had been invited to audition for a producer who could change her life, a chance that many young singers only dreamed of. The idea that she might finally step beyond Willow Creek, leave the dusty streets and small stages behind, made her feel like she was on the edge of something extraordinary. For days, she prepared. She practiced every morning and evening, strumming her guitar, perfecting her vocals, and rehearsing the songs she had written herself. Each note mattered, each lyric carried the weight of her hopes. Her fingers grew sore from constant practice, but she welcomed the pain. It was proof that she was working toward something bigger, something that could finally give her dreams a chance to breathe. Her parents watched with pride, a mixture of worry and hope in their eyes. They knew the world beyond Willow Creek was unpredictable and sometimes cruel, but they also knew Leela had a spirit that refused to be tamed. The morning of her departure arrived bright and clear. The sun rose slowly over the horizon, casting golden light across the fields and the town's quiet streets. Leela packed her small bag carefully, making sure she had everything she might need: her guitar, sheet music, a notebook of lyrics, and a few personal items she couldn't leave behind. She kissed her mother on the cheek and hugged her father tightly. Her younger brother clung to her leg, whispering words of encouragement between tears. It was a morning of hope, excitement, and quiet fear. Wyatt McCall was there too, leaning against the fence at the edge of the driveway, watching as Leela adjusted the guitar strap over her shoulder. He had offered to ride with her to Austin, a silent guardian who wanted to make sure she got there safely. But Leela shook her head with a determined smile. "I need to do this on my own," she said, her voice calm but full of resolve. "I have to face it by myself, Wyatt. That's the only way I'll know if I can really make it." Wyatt hesitated, seeing the fire in her eyes. He had always admired her courage, but he also knew the risks of a long drive on Texas highways, especially with spring rains that could turn roads slick and dangerous. Still, he understood that this was her moment. He nodded slowly, tipping his hat. "All right, Leela. Just be careful out there," he said quietly, his voice heavy with concern. He watched as she climbed into the truck, a small vehicle that had been in her family for years, its paint faded and scratched but reliable. Leela waved to the town as she drove off, the engine rumbling softly. She felt a mix of exhilaration and nervousness as the familiar landscape of Willow Creek began to shrink behind her. The wind in her hair and the open road ahead made her feel alive, free, and ready to face whatever came next. She had spent so long imagining this journey, rehearsing every detail in her mind, that the reality of it almost felt surreal. The road stretched before her like a ribbon of possibility, each mile bringing her closer to her dream. The first hour of the drive was peaceful. The sun climbed higher in the sky, warming the earth and painting the fields in shades of green and gold. Birds flew alongside her, singing their morning songs, and Leela hummed along, letting the rhythm of the road mix with the rhythm of her music. She felt a sense of calm, as if the universe had given her this moment as a reward for years of hard work. Her nerves were still present, a gentle reminder of the stakes, but they were balanced by a deep excitement that made her heart race. As the day went on, clouds began to gather on the horizon. The wind picked up, rustling the leaves of the few trees that dotted the countryside. Leela noticed the change but didn't panic. She adjusted her speed and focused on the road, keeping her attention sharp. She sang softly to herself, letting the music guide her, a way to stay calm and confident as the world around her shifted. The first few drops of rain began to fall, dotting the windshield, and she turned on the wipers. The rhythm of the rain mixed with her singing, creating a strange harmony that was both soothing and unnerving. By mid-afternoon, the rain had grown heavier, turning into a steady downpour that blurred the lines of the road ahead. Leela's hands gripped the steering wheel tightly, eyes alert, as she carefully navigated the winding curves and occasional potholes. She reminded herself to stay calm, to keep her focus, and to trust her own abilities. She had driven through rain before, though never on a journey this important. Every mile felt like a test, every bend in the road a challenge. She could feel her heart pounding, but she refused to let fear take over. Back in Willow Creek, Wyatt had a feeling deep in his gut that something was off. He had tried to push it away, telling himself she would be fine, that she was careful and capable. But the nagging worry wouldn't leave him. He mounted his horse, riding out along the route she would likely take, scanning the roads for any sign of trouble. His instincts, honed from years of life on the ranch and experience with unpredictable dangers, told him to trust this feeling. He moved swiftly but cautiously, his eyes constantly searching the horizon. Meanwhile, Leela's journey continued, each mile carrying her farther from the town she had known all her life and closer to a future she had imagined in every detail. The radio played softly in the background, offering her occasional companionship, but her thoughts were mostly on the audition. The songs she would sing, the expression in her voice, the possibility of finally being seen and heard by someone who could open the doors she had dreamed about. She felt the weight of expectation, not just from herself, but from her family, her friends, and even the town that had quietly cheered for her over the years. As the storm grew stronger, the road became more treacherous. Water pooled in ruts and potholes, making each turn a careful negotiation between speed and control. Leela's focus was absolute, her reflexes sharp, and her determination unwavering. She adjusted her hands on the wheel, leaned slightly forward, and spoke quietly to herself, encouraging herself to stay calm. The rain hammered against the roof of the truck, and she could barely see through the windshield at times, but she refused to slow down too much. Every minute counted, every mile was progress toward her dream. By late afternoon, she reached a particularly narrow stretch of road, bordered by fields that sloped gently down into shallow ditches. The rain had made the asphalt slick, and a momentary lapse in concentration almost caused her truck to skid. Her heart jumped, and she tightened her grip on the wheel, taking deep, steadying breaths. She reminded herself to stay focused, to remember everything she had practiced, and to trust her instincts. It was a moment of tension, a reminder that even the most careful planning cannot eliminate all danger. Wyatt, following from a distance, noticed the storm intensifying. The clouds had turned dark gray, and the wind whipped across the open fields with increasing force. He urged his horse to move faster, scanning for any sign of trouble. Something in him knew that Leela might be at risk. He remembered all the times he had watched her perform, all the years he had admired her courage, and now that admiration was laced with fear. He wanted to reach her to ensure she was safe, but he also understood that she needed to face this journey herself. Inside the truck, Leela's thoughts shifted from excitement to concern. The rain was relentless now, and she had to slow down to maintain control. She focused on keeping the tires steady on the slick road, adjusting her steering as needed. Every turn required precision, every mile demanded attention. She could feel the tension in her body, the strain in her muscles, but she refused to give in to panic. She was determined to reach Austin, to make this audition count, to prove to herself that she could rise above fear and uncertainty. As the hours passed, the storm seemed to intensify, with sheets of rain reducing visibility to almost nothing. Leela drove cautiously, inching forward with patience and care. Her mind cycled between practical concerns, speed, direction, safety, and the excitement of what awaited her at the end of the journey. The contrast between the danger of the road and the promise of the future created a strange, almost surreal tension. She was simultaneously terrified and exhilarated, aware of the risks yet unwilling to let them stop her. Wyatt continued his pursuit, his heart heavy with worry. He knew the roads were dangerous, that one mistake could have serious consequences. His mind raced with every possible scenario, imagining all the ways things could go wrong. But he also remembered Leela's strength, her courage, and her determination. He knew she was capable of handling more than most people realized, yet he couldn't shake the fear that something unexpected could happen. Every moment stretched endlessly as he followed the route, driven by a mixture of hope and dread. As evening approached, the rain finally began to lessen, though the roads remained slick and dangerous. Leela's muscles ached, and fatigue began to set in, but she was determined to keep going. She reminded herself of why she was on this journey, of the dreams that had carried her this far, and of the possibility that her life could change in ways she had only imagined. She pressed forward one careful mile at a time, unaware that the storm was about to challenge her in ways she had never expected. The rain had finally slowed to a steady drizzle, but the roads were still slick with water, and the sky hung low, heavy with gray clouds. Leela Harper was tired, her hands gripping the steering wheel tightly, her eyes focused on the faint lines of the road ahead. Every mile she drove carried her closer to Austin, closer to the audition she had dreamed of for years, and closer to the possibility of proving to herself that she could succeed. She hummed softly, letting her voice blend with the rhythm of the wipers swiping across the windshield. The music comforted her, a small bubble of calm in the midst of a challenging journey. She had been driving for hours, navigating curves and dips in the road that had become more treacherous as the day went on. She had slowed down when necessary, adjusted her speed when puddles formed, and carefully maneuvered around slick patches. Her heart beat steadily, a mix of excitement and nervousness. She thought about the songs she would sing at the audition, the way her voice might reach the ears of someone who could change her life, and the proud smiles of her family waiting for her back home. Each thought gave her strength, helping her push through fatigue. Wyatt McCall rode alongside the fields, scanning the road for any sign of trouble. His instincts had been telling him that something was wrong ever since Leela left that morning. He had tried to ignore it, telling himself she was careful, that she could handle herself, but the feeling of unease had not left him. He urged his horse faster, keeping his eyes on the distant highway, his mind imagining every possible scenario. He was prepared to act if he needed to, but all he could do for now was hope she was safe. Leela approached a sharp curve on the road, where the asphalt was narrow and bordered by a shallow ditch on either side. The drizzle made the surface slippery, and her tires shifted slightly on the wet pavement. She leaned forward slightly, adjusting her hands on the wheel and focused intently on keeping the truck steady. Her breathing was steady, controlled, and she reminded herself that she had faced challenges before she could handle this. Every twist of the road required her full attention, and she gave it willingly. She knew that every careful decision mattered. Suddenly, a small patch of water on the road caused the truck to skid slightly. Leela's heart skipped a beat, and she gripped the wheel even tighter. She corrected the vehicle's path quickly, taking a deep breath to calm the brief surge of fear. She murmured to herself, "Stay calm, Leela, you can do this." The words felt strange in the quiet cabin of the truck, but they gave her reassurance. The moment passed, and she continued forward, her determination stronger than ever. Wyatt had been following at a distance, aware of the potential danger posed by the rain and curves. He urged his horse to move faster, sensing that something might be about to happen. He scanned the road with sharp eyes, noting every bend, every patch of standing water. His mind was focused, alert, ready to help if necessary. He could see the faint outline of a vehicle in the distance, its taillights blinking faintly in the rain, and he felt a jolt of relief. That was Leela's truck. She was ahead, seemingly safe, but his instinctive worry would not fade. As Leela navigated the next curve, the road suddenly seemed more treacherous than before. The surface glistened with water, reflecting the dim light of the sky, and her tires slipped slightly once more. She corrected quickly, but the sudden movement caused the truck to swerve near the edge of the road. Her heart raced, and she gripped the wheel firmly, willing the vehicle to stay on the path. She could feel the tension in her arms, the strain in her neck from hours of focus, but she refused to let panic take over. Every second mattered now, and she knew she had to remain completely aware of her surroundings. The truck hit a small patch of loose gravel at the edge of the road. It shifted under the tires, and for a moment, Leela felt the vehicle wobble. She leaned forward, her eyes sharp, her hands steady. She turned the wheel carefully, trying to regain full control. The minutes stretched endlessly as she focused on maintaining balance, each movement precise. Her pulse thumped in her ears, a steady reminder of how fragile each moment could be on a wet and narrow road. Wyatt had been closing the distance, riding faster than ever, feeling a tight knot of worry twist in his chest. He could see the flash of Leela's truck as it moved through the curves, and his heart tightened with every movement that seemed uncertain or dangerous. His instincts told him to act immediately to reach her as soon as possible, but he could only ride, hoping that she could manage. His horse's hooves pounded the wet earth, each step bringing him closer, yet the minutes felt endless. Suddenly, a small dip in the road caused the truck to jolt. Leela's body tensed, and she spoke softly to herself. "Almost there, almost there." She carefully adjusted her hands and leaned into the turn, feeling the vehicle respond. For a brief moment, it seemed as though she had regained control. The relief was short-lived. Another slick patch appeared ahead, reflecting the dimming light in a mirror-like sheen. Her tires slipped slightly again, and the truck swerved dangerously close to the edge. Leela's mind raced. She had trained herself for moments like this, but she realized that even her skill had limits in the face of a storm and slick roads. Wyatt, seeing the swerving vehicle, pushed his horse forward with every ounce of strength he had. He shouted Leela's name, though he knew she likely could not hear him over the rain and engine. He felt a surge of urgency unlike anything before. He could see the precarious path she was on, the potential danger of a misstep, and his heart pounded in his chest. He prayed silently that she would regain control, that she would make it past this stretch safely. The truck hit a particularly slick patch, causing a sharp shift in its movement. Leela's heart raced. She adjusted quickly, twisting the wheel with all her focus, but the vehicle slid slightly off the road. She felt the truck wobble, her muscles straining to keep it upright. Time seemed to slow as she fought to maintain control. She whispered encouragement to herself. "You can do this, Leela, just a little farther." Her voice trembled slightly, but her determination was unwavering. Wyatt was closer now, riding desperately, feeling the tension in every muscle. He could see that Leela's truck had moved dangerously close to the side, and a surge of fear gripped him. His mind raced through all the possible outcomes, all the ways the moment could end badly. Yet he pushed forward, knowing that even if he couldn't prevent what was happening, he could at least be there. His presence mattered, even if only to bear witness, even if only to offer help afterward. The truck jolted again, moving slightly further off the edge. Leela's hands shook, her jaw tight, but she refused to panic. She leaned forward, adjusted the wheel, and focused every thought on keeping the truck steady. She whispered softly, "Just a little more, just a little more." The minutes stretched endlessly, the world narrowed to the space inside the truck, the road ahead, and the rhythm of her breathing. Wyatt's heart sank when he saw the truck finally come to a rest at the side of the road. He dismounted quickly, running toward the vehicle as fast as he could. Relief and fear mingled in his chest. He approached carefully, aware that Leela might still be shaken. The rain had slowed to a gentle drizzle, the storm moving past, leaving the road wet and glistening in the fading light. He called her name again, his voice urgent but calm. Leela sat inside the truck, trembling, her hands still on the wheel. Her chest rose and fell rapidly as she tried to calm herself. She looked at Wyatt through the windshield, relief flooding her features. "Wyatt," she whispered, her voice weak but full of gratitude. He rushed to her side, opening the door gently, making sure she was steady before guiding her out. She leaned on him slightly, exhausted from the ordeal but alive. Wyatt held her steady, checking that she was unhurt beyond the minor scrapes and shock. His eyes reflected a mixture of fear, relief, and something deeper, the weight of knowing how close she had come to danger. Leela looked up at him, tears mingling with raindrops on her cheeks, and whispered, "I thought I could do it." Wyatt shook his head gently, a soft smile breaking through his worry. "You did do it," he said. "You're safe, that's what matters." Together, they stood for a moment on the wet roadside, the sky above them opening to the first hints of evening light. Leela breathed deeply, feeling the tension leave her body slowly. The road behind them stretched endlessly, a reminder of the challenges she had faced, and the path ahead shimmered with possibility. Wyatt's presence grounded her, his calm strength a reminder that even in moments of fear, she was not alone. The two of them finally moved back toward the truck, carefully inspecting it to make sure it could continue. The vehicle had survived the ordeal, though the experience left both of them shaken. Leela climbed back in, Wyatt walking beside her as she slowly started the engine. The journey would continue, but this moment, this near miss, had left its mark. They both understood the fragility of life, the importance of caution, and the value of those who care deeply for you. Leela drove on, her hands steadier, her mind sharper. The road was still wet, but she no longer felt the same fear. She had faced the storm and the road's danger and survived. Wyatt rode alongside briefly, making sure she regained confidence before turning back toward home. Their connection had deepened in the shared tension of the moment, a quiet understanding passing between them that words could not capture. By the time the sun began to set, painting the sky in soft shades of orange and pink, Leela was more determined than ever. She knew the audition awaited her, a promise of the future she had worked for tirelessly. The road had tested her, challenged her, and yet she had proven to herself that she could endure. The storm had passed, but the memory of it would remain, a reminder of her resilience, courage, and the support of those who cared for her. The sun rose slowly over Willow Creek the next morning, spilling golden light over the small town. The streets were quiet, save for the soft hum of morning life, roosters crowing, the distant lowing of cattle, and the occasional rumble of a truck making its way down Main Street. Life went on in the town as it always had, but for some, the world had shifted in ways that would never be the same again. Wyatt McCall rode slowly along the edge of the fields, his mind heavy with thought. The events of the previous day weighed on him like a storm cloud that refused to pass. He could still see Leela's face in his mind, the determination in her eyes, and the way the truck had swerved dangerously close to the edge. He had ridden to her side, worried and tense, and yet grateful that she had come through it safely. That moment, though brief, had left a mark on him, a deep awareness of how fragile life could be and how quickly things could change in an instant. The town had gathered quietly at the small community center later that morning. Word of Leela's journey had spread quickly, and the townspeople were eager to hear news. They knew she had set out with big dreams, aiming for something beyond the dusty streets of Willow Creek, and they wanted to celebrate her courage. Her family was there, her father pacing nervously, her mother clutching her younger brother's hand, eyes bright with concern. When Leela arrived, stepping down from her father's old truck with Wyatt by her side, the room filled with relief and quiet admiration. Leela's voice trembled slightly as she spoke, recounting the journey and the near mishap on the slick road. She described how the rain had made the path challenging, how her tires had slipped, and how she had had to focus with every ounce of concentration. There was no anger or bitterness in her words, only honesty and a quiet sense of accomplishment. The townspeople listened intently, some nodding in understanding, others smiling with pride. They could feel her courage, her strength, and her determination. Wyatt stayed close, watching her with quiet respect. He didn't speak much, but his presence was a reminder that she was not alone, that there were people who cared deeply for her and would stand by her through every challenge. He felt a mixture of pride and relief. Pride because she had faced the danger with courage, and relief because she had survived, because she was safe, and because the dream she carried in her heart had not been lost. Over the following days, life began to return to a gentle rhythm, though the memory of the storm lingered in everyone's mind. Leela continued her preparations for the audition, her determination stronger than ever. She spent hours practicing in her room, her guitar resting on her lap, her voice carrying across the quiet streets. Every note, every lyric was infused with the awareness of how close she had come to losing the opportunity, and life itself. The near miss had strengthened her resolve, making her focus sharper and her spirit more determined. Wyatt watched her as she practiced, often from a distance, careful not to intrude. He admired her more than ever, recognizing that true courage is not the absence of fear but the decision to act despite it. Leela had faced the storm, the slick roads, and the fatigue of the long drive, yet she had emerged with her determination intact. He felt honored to witness her strength, knowing that she had faced more than most could imagine and had come through it with grace and resilience. The town of Willow Creek began to celebrate her bravery in small ways. Local newspapers printed stories about her journey, highlighting her courage and determination. Friends and neighbors stopped by to offer words of encouragement and support, gifts of flowers, and little notes wishing her luck. Even those who had doubted her abilities in the past now saw the fire within her, the determination that could carry her beyond the borders of their small town. Leela took it all in quietly, grateful for the support, but focused on the larger goal, the audition that could change her life. Her family remained her anchor. Her father, once worried and hesitant, now stood proudly by her side, offering advice, encouragement, and quiet support. Her mother, who had always been practical and cautious, found herself moved by Leela's courage and determination. She offered gentle words of guidance, helping Leela balance her preparation with moments of rest. And her younger brother, who had once clung to her leg on the morning of her journey, now watched with wide eyes and admiration, inspired by his sister's bravery. Wyatt continued to play his quiet role in her life, offering support without demanding attention or recognition. He repaired equipment, helped with practice setups, and occasionally offered a steady presence during moments of doubt. He never sought praise or acknowledgement. His satisfaction came from knowing that Leela was safe, focused, and ready to step into her future. Their bond, built over years of quiet observation and mutual respect, had deepened during the ordeal on the road. Both understood the strength in shared trust and the quiet power of someone who believes in you without question. As the day of the audition approached, Leela felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness. She had dreamed of this moment for years, and now it was almost here. The town, though small and quiet, had become a source of strength, a community that believed in her even when she questioned herself. She took a deep breath, feeling the weight of their collective hope and encouragement, and reminded herself that she had already overcome obstacles that seemed impossible. This audition was just another step, another challenge to meet with courage and focus. The morning of the audition arrived with a clear sky and warm sunlight, a stark contrast to the storm she had faced on her journey. Leela packed her things carefully, ensuring that every sheet of music, every note was ready. Her parents walked her to the truck, their faces bright with pride and hope. Wyatt came along quietly, walking beside her, offering a calm reassurance that steadied her nerves. When she climbed into the truck, her hands were steady, her mind focused. She glanced back at the small town that had nurtured her dreams, feeling gratitude for the people who had believed in her and supported her along the way. The drive to Austin felt different this time. The roads were dry, the skies clear, and the journey, though long, seemed manageable. Leela focused on the rhythm of her breathing and the songs she would perform. Every mile carried her closer to her dream, and she felt a quiet confidence building within her. The lessons from the previous storm, focus, patience, resilience, guided her every move. She knew now that challenges were a part of the journey, but they did not have to define the outcome. When she finally arrived at the studio, she felt a mixture of awe and determination. The building was large and impressive, filled with people who worked in a world she had only imagined. Her heart raced, but she reminded herself that she had come this far, and nothing could take away the courage and preparation that had carried her here. Wyatt accompanied her to the door, offering a reassuring nod and a quiet smile. "You've got this," he said simply. Those words, spoken softly, carried more weight than any speech or instruction. They reminded her of the support, the hope, and the trust of everyone who believed in her. Inside the studio, Leela took a moment to gather herself. She breathed deeply, allowing the calm to settle over her nerves. The audition began, and she sang with every ounce of passion, focus, and authenticity she possessed. Her voice carried not only talent, but also the strength of experience. The courage she had shown on the road, the determination to pursue her dreams, and the quiet resilience she had nurtured over years of preparation. Each note reflected her journey, each lyric told a story of hope, courage, and perseverance. After the audition, Leela stepped outside, feeling a mixture of relief and anticipation. She knew the outcome was uncertain, but she had given her best. Wyatt was waiting nearby, his presence a grounding force. He smiled, pride and admiration in his eyes. "You did everything you could," he said, "and that's what matters most." Leela smiled back, feeling a deep sense of accomplishment. She had faced fear, weathered the storm, and still pursued her dream. No matter what happened next, she had proven to herself that courage and determination could carry her through even the most challenging moments. Back in Willow Creek, the town celebrated quietly. Leela's journey had inspired others, young girls and boys, families, neighbors, showing them that dreams could be pursued with courage and focus. Wyatt continued his work on the ranch, but the story of the young singer who braved the storm remained in his heart, a reminder of the beauty and fragility of life, and the power of unwavering determination. In the days and weeks that followed, Leela received news that she had been selected to continue in the audition process. Her dreams were no longer distant fantasies, they were becoming reality. The town cheered quietly, proud of the girl who had never given up, who had faced the storm and kept moving forward. Wyatt watched from a distance, silently supporting her, knowing that her journey was just beginning, but also knowing that she had already shown the courage and strength to face anything the future might hold. The experience of the storm, the near accident, and the journey to the audition had changed her. Leela Harper understood now that life was fragile, that dreams required courage, and that even in the face of uncertainty, determination and focus could guide you through the hardest moments. She carried that lesson with her always, a quiet strength that would sustain her through every challenge, every stage, and every song she would sing. And as the sun set over Willow Creek, casting long shadows over the quiet streets and fields, Wyatt McCall watched the horizon, feeling a sense of peace. Leela had faced the storm, and she had emerged stronger, braver, and ready to step into the world she had always imagined. He knew that no matter where life took her, she would carry the spirit of Willow Creek, the love of her family, and the courage that had guided her through the storm. Her journey was far from over, but the lessons of resilience, hope, and determination would guide her through every step. And Wyatt, quiet and steadfast, would always be there in the background, a witness to the life of a girl who had never let fear stop her from reaching for her dreams.